Welcome back in, everybody. Another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. My name is Nathan King, joined by Jason Caldwell here on Thursday Night Live. Not on location this week with the bye week, but as always, we are sponsored by AU Club and looking forward to getting back there next week before a huge home game against Georgia. And Jason, there couldn't have been a much better timed bye week for this Auburn football team. Maybe for the fans as well to get a little bit of a break after a frustrating game against Texas A&M. But, it's been the subject of conversation all week long. Just how different is this offense going to look when they take the field against Georgia? Just how many of these problems are fixable? It would not be the craziest thing in the world to see this offense be able to get back on schedule. Yeah. Like it's absolutely not out of the realm of possibility at all. But I do think it's going to require a lot of improvements across the board. That starts with the coaches, but it also has to do with personnel. And Hugh Freeze talked about it this week. They're just trying to see what's the best way to put these guys in positions to succeed, and taking a look back at their first 5 games, particularly the last 2 games, because there are not many teams and many players in college football that would have been able to succeed the last couple of weeks with just kind of the amalgamation of issues that this group has had across the board.
Yeah, no, you're right. Even the first 3 weeks, because Nathan, we know it, we heard it. The first 3 weeks, the questions were, why can't you throw the ball? Why can't you throw the ball deep? Because they weren't having to. They were able to run the football. And now you look the last 2 weeks and you go, man, not running it at all. And so I do think part of it, in my mind, is I think you've seen Oklahoma and Texas A&M scheme to make Auburn believe the box is full. And then you throw the football and they back out, and all of a sudden everything's flooded and there's nowhere to throw the football. I think that's some of it. Now, there's been some open receivers. And as I've been thinking this through this week too, Nathan, we know this is an RPO scheme. This is an offense designed to have a run-pass option. When the defense knows you're not going to run it, but the offensive line still believes there's a chance you're running the football, that puts you in a very bad situation as an offensive lineman, because they're rushing the passer, not worried about the run, but you're still having to run block in theory for the first few. And I hadn't really thought about that until I started thinking about it more this week, because I'm thinking about the RPO. For me now, it makes it absolutely a must. If you're going to be an RPO team, you have to run the football. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Cannot have it any other way, because we saw Oklahoma and then Texas A&M basically, like, they weren't even worried about the run. You only really ran it 4 times, in my opinion, Saturday against Texas A&M. If you have a defense that says, look, they're not going to run it, but you're still play faking as if you're running the football, then you're wasting time. Your linemen aren't in position then to be able to pass protect. I think that's a lot of it. I really do. So for me, it starts with, if you're going to RPO, you have to be committed to running the football. I don't think to me, that's starting point number 1. That helps everything you do, in my opinion. If you're running the football, you don't even have to run it great. Just got to be able to run it some to be able to make teams be at least honest on defense.
Yeah, and it circles back to the biggest concern, question mark, whatever you want to call it, of these last 2 games, and that has been in the lead up, particularly Texas A&M. Auburn's coaches, Hugh Freeze, talked about the need to run the ball, the need to get yardage on first and second down, and then there's none of that. Derek Nix said on Monday on Tiger Talk, he said, the game plan was get ourselves in as many 2nd and 6s as possible. And it's like, you could have fooled me if that was the game plan. I mean, it just seems like it's just all over the place. And as you and I have talked about, if you had spiked the ball on first and second down the last 2 weeks, you would have had a shorter third down distance. And so it harkens back to, this group has had some pass protection issues. But Derek Nix even talked about it on Monday. It's just playing to your strengths right now, because he said, we've established the line of scrimmage in the run game. He said, we have moved some people in the running game. And then he said, pass protection's not been as consistent. And it's like, it's to your point, analyzing the data from the first few games, which should be pretty obvious at this point, that your average output when you drop Jackson Arnold back to pass is not as good as your average output either letting him run or giving it to one of your running backs.
Yeah, no, I think it's like I said, I think to me it's an obvious starting point. And coaches are human. Coaches have your human nature kicks in as well. We saw the first 3 weeks, Auburn defense wasn't great. It was good, still good enough to win games, but you're giving up plays. Now, Ball State, I mean, that doesn't count. I mean, but even against South Alabama, you went, and defensively, it wasn't great. So you go into Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and maybe you're thinking, look, we're going to have to score more points to win this game. Handing it off and running it's probably not going to be enough. But at halftime of both those games, you realize, look, you're still in the ball game in both of those. You can make adjustments to what you're doing. There were opportunities in the second half to run that ball, especially the last 7 minutes against Texas A&M. And it felt like, and like I said, I've said I don't think you got people that are actually doing this, but it's felt like, and I said it's felt like patience to panic. I don't think it's panic as in, oh my gosh, what are we doing? But it feels like we got to make an explosive play. Got to go make an explosive play. But Saturday, and I do think we saw some of trying to get into 2nd and 6, but doing it with the passing game, because there were a lot of really short throws on first down where you're hoping to get 3 or 4 yards, but a lot of them were 0 and 1 yard. And so all of a sudden you're still sitting there at 2nd and 9 and you've thrown the football on first down. Now you put yourself in another passing situation on 2nd and 9. So, yeah, if you're throwing it on first down, it better be sure thing, but you got to get some positive yardage to then give yourself the run option in there, and there just weren't enough of those plays on Saturday.
Yeah, you get 0 or 1 yard, and then the next play maybe is a false start. So it's brings us into the next problem for this group. And Hugh Freeze said it has been, quote, the biggest question for this staff in the building during the bye week, and that is the offensive line. They're at a point now where not only the penalties, but just you go back and watch, and you and I were kind of looking at some screen grabs of the game last Sunday, and you just got guys all over the place in terms of pass protection. You've got a double team on one guy. You've got the guard not touching anybody, and it was that 4th and 1 play at the end, and you've got 3 or 4 rushers in Jackson Arnold's face. And look, the 4th and 1, should you have dropped straight back in that? Probably not, but if you're going to do that, you got to go execute it. And I mean, that they have really, really lacked in that department for a group that was supposed to be a strength of this team, that was supposed to be, the 7th most experienced group in the country. The tackles have really, really struggled the last couple games. And so I would not be surprised when you talk about personnel changes. I'd kind of be surprised at this point if Jackson Arnold gets pulled at quarterback. Like you probably just continue to work around him. But I would not be surprised if they tinker with the offensive line a little bit, and we'll see what that looks like next week at practice, because something is not working right now in the passing game with that group.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think if you say, look, we're going to run the football and be physical and try to avoid those situations, this may be the best group. But there's still there's no question in my mind that this week is and has been spent looking at other options. Obviously, you have an obvious one in there in Tutal. He's a guy that started games. The question is, if you don't feel like Xavier Chaplin is playing well enough at left tackle, where do you go there? Because look, you went out and got him for a reason. And so if you don't feel like he's playing well enough, how do you remedy that? Here's the thing, and I've said it, how do you help your offensive line? How do you help them? The first thing is by running the football. And another thing I think you help them by, because look, we have seen, especially Oklahoma and Texas A&M, they have schemed the dog out of Auburn's front. Twist, fake blitzes, zone pressures. Like, it's been a ton of those things. How do you remedy those things? By going with tempo. Because if you line up and get on the ball and prepare to snap it, they can't do that. You're almost forced teams into running base defenses. Catch them in personnel, keep the same guys on the field, go tempo. There's 2 things right now that I think, if you said, hey, I've never been an OC, never called a play in my life. Watched a lot of football, but I've talked to a bunch of coaches. To me, if I want to help my offensive line, I want to run the football, and then I want to make the defense be as vanilla as they can possibly be. And the way to do that is by getting in tempo and getting to the line of scrimmage and saying, okay, we're here. You got to show me what you're doing. Instead of, we're going to sub, get up here, we're going to check. And then when you check, they check. And it becomes a chess game back and forth. Sooner or later, you got to snap the football. Get the line of scrimmage, snap the ball. Hey, you may have a 30-second possession. That's okay. Right now, your possessions are lasting 48 seconds because you're getting sacked or throwing an interception and you're still punting. To me, those are two things I think help no matter who's playing on the offensive line.
And if you to that point, whether it's from tempo or other methods, I know Auburn wants to get the ball to their playmakers right now, but defenses are keying in. Hugh Freeze talked about this week. They are keying in on Cam Coleman. Like Hugh Freeze said it on the teleconference. He's like, it's not like I don't want to throw the ball to Cam Coleman. Like, it's not like I don't want to do that, but defenses are trying to take him away right now. When you get somebody on their heels and they can't scheme it up before the play, then that's going to help as well.
I think another part of this too, thinking about Cam and Eric Singleton, Malcolm Simmons, I would guess in the first 5 games that Cam Coleman has lined up on the left side of Auburn's offensive formation 95% of the time. He does line up on the right side some. I don't know that we've seen him in the slot at all, other than if both guys are in the slot and you're kind of stacked a little bit. I think it's too easy to find Cam Coleman now. We've seen teams go, look, we're going to put this guy in the slot and make you either change what you're doing. So I think there's some of those things that you have to do too. I think you have to be more creative in where guys line up and how they're used to be able to get them the football too. So maybe that's something that you look at during this week too, to go, look, you're 5 games into year number 2. It's the same offense. You got to be able to move around to get positions. And I think he can do it, but like, look, put Cam in the slot and go, okay, all right, nickel, have at it. Middle of the field, have at it. You're going to have to keep a safety deep in the middle of the field. Now it gives you more room for Eric Singleton, Malcolm Simmons. I think you have to be able to do those types of things as
well. Your intuition does not betray you, Jason. Against Oklahoma, Cam Coleman, out of his 67 snaps, he lined up as the left outside receiver 66 times. Against Texas A&M, 61 of his 62 snaps. So all but this PFF.
So it's all the time. So it's 98%. Yeah. Correct. I mean, two plays out of 120, whatever it is, or 140. Yeah. That to me, that makes it too easy for a defense. If you know where that guy's going to be when you call your defense, to me, that makes it too easy for them to scheme that way, going, okay, well, we know that guy's going to be here. Now we can shade our coverage that way. If you come out and put him in a slot and all of a sudden somebody goes, uh-oh, well, now what do we do? I think you've got to move him around some. And again, I think that's too easy if you know where he's going to be every time.
And if the solution to getting him ball is just and I know it's the RPO stuff, and heck, this is a schematic flaw of an offense like this, but I mean, when the option to throw to him is just a deep ball, a one-on-one down the sideline, I think that limits some of his skill sets, even though we've seen him do that at a really high level so far. There is a reason why somebody like Eric Singleton has had more opportunities to do different things with the football, not just because he's a speed sweep guy.
It's easier to find ways to get the ball to somebody when they're in the slot. It just is. Shorter throws, first of all, and you have 2 ways you can go. You can go to the sideline. You can go to the middle of the field. Right now, Cam Coleman you can run a little out, but there's not much room. Deep ball, and then you can try to use the middle of the field, but they don't do a ton of those because he normally has safety help on the inside. We saw that the second half of Oklahoma. Since the second half of Oklahoma and all of Texas A&M, he's lined up outside. They have an outside defender and an inside safety most of the time, which is why we saw the 3-yard throws last week against A&M, because you didn't have those options available. Yes, I think you got to move him and get him in some different spots.
We talked about this a little bit on the exit survey, and this is the last thing we'll kind of discuss in the bye week, and then we'll talk about basketball. But what is your feeling, just kind of generally, Jason, on the outlook for the rest of this season? It's kind of wild to take one game here, Texas A&M, and then sort of have that as an indictment on the rest of the year.
Yep.
But as we've talked about, that game was about more than just a loss. It was about more than just one game. It was about a lot of different problems. Great time for the bye week. It does not get easier against Georgia. And then, Missouri is really good as well. So you've got a couple really, really tough home games coming up. I think it's a good spot for them to be at home. But just for the rest of this season, now it's only been 2 SEC games, so it's kind of crazy to be thinking about at this point. But what is your outlook on what, just to be honest, what Hugh Freeze has to do to get this thing turned around and to get some goodwill back here in year 3?
Yeah, and it's funny because you're right. Coming out of Oklahoma, you went, man, that team was 3 plays away from winning by 2 touchdowns at Oklahoma.
Yep.
It felt like, man, now, hey, didn't run it enough, but there were plays in the passing game. You're like, look, if you make those plays, it doesn't matter. And it feels completely different after Texas A&M. Texas A&M felt like the last 3 years, 4 years, whatever you want to, going back to Brian Harsin after Bo Nix. It felt like that. That's what has caused Auburn fans to maybe not jump off the cliff, but they're hanging on to a branch on the side of it right now, waiting to fall. I do agree with Hugh Freeze and Warner Garden. People laugh. They are close. Now, they may not be close to being the fun and gun Florida Gators on offense, but they're close to being 5-0. You can't deny that. They've lost 2 games by a touchdown on the road against, I think, pretty good teams. I don't know that they're playoff teams, but they're good teams. And you've had chances to win both games, as bad as it's been. That's the definition of close. Now, it doesn't count because you didn't do it. Can you get just okay? Right now, if this team can be okay on offense and just be solid. If you're just solid on offense, you can win every game. Now, you may not win all of them all, but being at home with Georgia, Missouri, and Kentucky, Alabama, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, you got some difficult games ahead, but they just played at Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and didn't do anything offensively and had a chance to win both games. Can your defense keep doing that? I don't know. That's the hard part. But I think if you can just get to okay. Just be okay. Run it okay. Make a couple plays in the passing game. If you do those things, you're going to give yourself a chance. And so I do think it's close. It's hard, though, to imagine that this offense suddenly goes boom and you're scoring 35 a game. It's just hard to see that right now. The talent is there, but it just doesn't feel like that there's any mojo at all at the moment.
Yeah, and this defense is real good. That's one big takeaway.
And I think it's going to get better.
I have had no complaints with anything they've done. You look at the scoring averages that these teams they've played are probably going to have at the end of this season, and they've just done a great job. Timely plays as well, I think, is the name of the game right now for this defense. Whether it was that Kieron Crawford takeaway against Oklahoma that kind of stopped it. I think it would have been a 17-3 game if they had gone down and scored there. And then the definition of timely is Xavier Atkins taking advantage of a very poor play call by Texas A&M to throw the ball there, but basically to get a pick 6. And so, yeah, you're right. This group is the main reason why Georgia comes to town in a week. And you're like, yeah, Auburn can win that game. Absolutely. Like, we've seen it a million times. An Auburn defense that just plays really well at home. And all you've got to do is be okay on offense. It's going to be a great crowd. It's going to be a night game. And so I think DJ Durkin and his crew deserve a lot of credit on that side of the ball. Playing a bunch of young guys too.
Yes.
And they have not hesitated to continue to do that. Jason, moving on now to it seems like basketball does this a lot for Auburn of late, but a more positive note from basketball. It has been a week and change now of the Stephen Pearl era. It's been just over a week since he was introduced as the head coach. And on Wednesday of this week, Auburn had pro day. It was an opportunity for us to go and see the team not only perform in front of NBA scouts, but it's a bit different of a practice setting because usually, while we can go to practice whenever we want, the understanding with the coaching staff over the years is, hey, just come and hang out and observe, but don't share everything we're doing. This is a little bit different. There's so many people there, so many scouts there. It is kind of a showcase day. So we can sit here and talk about it, which is great because it was a momentous day for this team. The main news is that Stephen Pearl told us Keyshawn Hall and Todd Pettiford told the team, I can't remember if it was before or after practice, that they're not going anywhere. They do not intend to enter the transfer portal. You would be foolish to think neither of them considered it. Neither of them were getting phone calls and all that sort of stuff. We know for a fact that Keyshawn Hall maybe was a little bit more of a saga here than a guy like Todd Pettiford. I don't know how much Todd Pettiford was even considering this thing.
Yeah, I don't either.
I tend to think not very much. But Keyshawn Hall was, and to get both of these guys back, because then
I even had a little bit of a rumor about Sebastian Williams-Adams. I don't think there was much to it, but it's just, hey, you solidified this whole deal in just a week, which was pretty darn good.
Yes, and I omitted there to say that Stephen followed that up by saying, and everyone else is coming back too.
Yeah.
And then fittingly, Keyshawn Hall followed that up about 30 minutes, I guess, after he told the team. And he was just awesome. He was so good offensively at Pro Day yesterday. You can really see why he is going to be such a nice compliment to this team. And really explosive offense was the takeaway for them yesterday, Jason. I mean, they shoot the cover off the ball. They shot 42% in their scrimmage yesterday. That is with Todd Pettiford going 2 of 9 from deep. And Stephen Pearl called him the best shooter on the team. I'm not sure if he's the best shooter on the team. He might be the third best shooter on this team because we can talk about Caden Magwood and Abdul Bashir, but even your guy, Sebastian Williams-Adams, Stephen said yesterday, look, he shot 2 of 16 in scrimmage settings, Stephen said, over the summer. He is currently 9 of 20 from 3 this preseason in scrimmage settings. He hit 2 of them yesterday, 2 of 3 from deep. This team's going to be able to. This team's going to score, man. They're going to score.
Filip Jovic is a guy that we know that can shoot the basketball. Now, he's not going to create a ton, but he's going to get some open looks because of the other guys. And you look at shooting, and it jumps out because Abdul Bashir it's like a layup from 22 feet. Caden Magwood has a really quick release, but unlimited range. It has a little bit of Jared Harper feel to it, but he's a bigger version of that guy. We'll see if he has that explosion things, but he looks pretty good. The key you mentioned those is the first guy, because actually both of them, Keyshawn Hall and Todd Pettiford, can get into the lane so easy, different ways. Todd's quickness, Keyshawn Hall is just a brute. I mean, it's a 6'7", 230-pound two guard that can just back people down. It creates so much stress on the defense that these guys are going to get some open shots. And Nathan, it wasn't 5 minutes in yesterday, I came up and said, hey, what's the scoring average record for an Auburn team in Auburn history? Because it feels like that's what this team's going to be.
They're going to get up and down the floor. I think the comparison is appropriate. Stephen Pearl has made it to the 2019 Final Four team. Not that they're going to make the Final Four, but that team was because, and I think if you wanted to compare them regular season wise, that would be fine. Like the team went 11-7, and the SEC was barely ranked during the season, but they just had so much offensive potential. They had so much shooting, so much explosiveness, and they are going to have to play more that way because they have a lot less size on the front court than they did last season. And the main thing is, I mean, Keyshawn Murphy has a good skill set, I think, that works for this team because he's going to be that rim running guy. He's going to be a really good rebounder, but you do not play a lot through him underneath the basket. You are not going to give him opportunities and just dump it off to him like you would with a guy like Janai Broom. And so it's going to be a different style of basketball. But yeah, I mean, there's just such potential, I think, is probably the best word for it, because even you look at a guy like Elijah Freeman, he had some plays where he popped yesterday. That is a freak
he's
freak
probably
athlete.
he's probably the ninth guy. I
He's
mean,
he may not he may not start. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, like I think you look at this roster and you start going, okay, where does he fit? He's obviously a 2-3, but you look and go, and Kevin Overton, we haven't mentioned him yet, but you think about penetrators, he's the third one of those guys.
Yeah.
So you
He's
got
just
guys
solid.
that can shoot, but he's a guy that it can bully ball you and get you down into the lane at 6'4". And all three of those guys are left-handed, which is really interesting because it changes how guys play defense. When you look, all three of those guys lefties. I don't know. It's a really interesting team, and you start talking about the depth and comparing it to 2019, and you think about, that team had 9 or 10 guys, and you go to Todd Pettiford, Kevin Overton, Abdul Bashir, Keyshawn Murphy, who is really athletic, can put the ball on the floor, Magwood, Elijah Freeman, Keyshawn Hall. We haven't seen him echo Porum yet, but he's going to help out some and do some things. And then Sebastian Williams, Adams, and Fleet Jovic. That's a bunch of guys and more length than they're not going to be as wide and physical. This team's got more length than any Auburn team has had for sure.
Yeah. So Porum, as Stephen Pearl shared with us yesterday, just a couple injury notes. He's had a lower back issue for not an issue, but it's been something that's kind of bothered him for a while. And so when it flared up a couple weeks ago, they were just like, nah, let's not push it. Today, as we record this on Thursday, Stephen Pearl said he'll be back at practice. Keyshawn Murphy had a knee issue in a workout. He's good now. And then Simon Walker, he said that was a 6-week timetable. So that was as of last week. That would actually put him back on the court when they start the season. Probably just puts him on the practice court, I would imagine.
Correct. Yeah.
You're not going to rush him in against Bethune-Cookman and Merrimack. Like you're
you
not
try to ease him in and see if you can get him ready by maybe after Thanksgiving time to where he's able to start playing on the court and running and doing those things again.
It reminded me of like the spring football games, where the coach is way behind the offense with the commentator, like Alabama or Auburn. That was Simon Walker yesterday on his scooter. He was just behind the action with the coaches watching him, and then Todd Pettiford came over and started pushing it for him. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun Wednesday there. Lots of excitement around that team. And look, Stephen Pearl, I think he knows what this team is. He knows what they have the potential to be, and he knows where some of their pitfalls might be. He still maintained yesterday. He's like, look, we got to play defense, and we're not going to be as good on defense as we were last year. But what was really, really interesting to me, Jason, was you just mentioned the depth. Last year, they shortened that rotation. All we heard about last year, and it was the case most of the year. Tournament time, though, you weren't playing Turtle Hudson. You weren't playing Chris Moore. There's probably another one off the top of my head that it's not coming out there. And Steven said yesterday, he said, look, we went from a 10-man rotation to really only 7 or 8. And he said, that got us beat against Florida in the Final Four because we just weren't as deep as them. He said, if we're going to play up tempo, we're going to need all 10 of these guys because that's what you have to have. Otherwise, this is not going to be a half-court team. If guys are getting tired and their legs aren't working in the second half, that's not going to work for it like this.
No, and that's the thing. This team doesn't have Janai Broom. And look, Miles Kelly was good. Denver Jones, the team had some good players, but to me, those guys that did not play at the end of the year, that 7, 8, 9, 10 on last year's team, I don't think are anywhere close to as talented as the 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, you think about it, like we mentioned Turtle, that could be where Sebastian Williams Adams is. He could be that same guy for this team, but he's going to be 20 minutes a game, and he's going to be a guy that go, look, he may be one of our best players. Heck, he may be starting by the middle of the year when you watch him do all the things he does for a basketball team. But a lot of it may depend on how this team plays. You're right. But they are going to be more up-tempo. They're going to rotate more, and I think they'll easily keep 9, 10 guys out there and roll through, which is what that 2019 team did.
If Keyshawn Hall, they like him at the 4, but it's like if Sebastian gets to the point where he just keeps on growing, then you might need to play Keyshawn Hall at the 3 and play him at the 4.
If you're able to do that and you have him as a 3 at that size, you create some serious issues for teams. And then honestly, he could play like Janai Broom at the 3. I mean, I think he can do some of the same things. You could play inside out with him. A lot of options with this team, especially offensively.
As we hit about the 30-minute mark here, Jason, we'll get into some college football games this weekend because I know Patrick is also backstage ready for his pick of the week. But this is not here on the bye week, this is not a great weekend of games, but I will say that's how college football goes. It's always the weekends when you don't think
100%.
you've got good ones.
I've got one to watch. I have one. I don't say that's the one. That's the one I think just watch is Texas going to Florida. Florida's defense is good enough. DJ Lagway missed time in the preseason. Texas has not been very good offensively. You go on a road and you feel like this is the last stand. Like this is it because of the schedule waiting for Florida. You go like, this may be the most winnable game they have other than Mississippi State the rest of this season. So you're starting to look like, okay, this is it. To me, that's a hornet's nest waiting to happen for Texas. And if it's not, then it's a funeral procession. I don't think there's either way on that one.
Yeah, you said it there. Last stand. I mean, an animal caught in a trap is gonna bite off its own leg before it sits there and bleeds out. So they're gonna try to. And Arch has been not. I mean, I don't know how many times I saw that stare down against Sam Houston. That was pretty ridiculous. But he hasn't done anything against any good opponents this season. The game of the week, actually, not only in the SEC but College Game Day, is going to Alabama. I don't think Vanderbilt does not have a chance in this game, which I think is kind of the way it's being perceived because you look at how Alabama handled a running quarterback in week 1. It was not very good, and Vanderbilt's going to have way fewer possessions than Florida State did. I know one thing, because of the loss to Florida State, this makes it a big pressure game for me for Alabama. You're at home. You hadn't lost to Vanderbilt at home since 1984. To me, this feels like, all that pressure is on us. Now, they played really well against Georgia. Vanderbilt's defense is not very good. But, again, can Vanderbilt just grind it out? We've seen them do that where they go, you look up and you go, and they've had the ball for 7 minutes, and they've only moved it 52 yards. But you look up, and it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 4th and 1, and they just kind of hold on to the football. It can make you really, really antsy. That's what Vanderbilt has to do because I don't think they can win a scoring match. And I think Alabama wins, and I think it's going to be, I think they'll score. And I don't know what I said, but 41-27 or something like that. But if Vanderbilt can grind it out, then all bets are off then. Yeah, so Vandy had 9 possessions in this game last year when they beat them. The average this season in college football is 12, and that may not seem like a huge difference, but that is
3 possessions is a lot.
It's a giant difference. That's just what they're going to try to do. In our picks, in our forecasters on the site, my game of the week was Miami at Florida State. Just because I don't think Florida State is now all of a sudden a bad team because they went on the road and lost in overtime to Virginia. This game is in Tallahassee. I tend to think, though, Jason, as much attention as somebody like Carson Beck is getting right now, this Miami offense, I think the Miami defense is what's going to shine here against a running quarterback against Thomas Castellanos, because that front seven for Miami, and some of those guys on that front seven, they are really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think line of scrimmage, you think about both sides of this one. Florida State's defensive line is not very good. They gave up a ton of points to Virginia. And, no guys on both sides of this one. Reuben Bain, obviously Hurricanes, a guy that Auburn recruited a whole lot. He is a guy that you don't see many defensive guys get mentioned in Heisman Trophy talk. But those two outside guys are absolute terrors for Miami. So, to me, what's that look like? The other side of it, Miami's offense hasn't been great, but, man, they're physical up front. And this Florida State defense has given up a bunch of rushing yards. Now, Alabama didn't even try to run it really early on against them. But you look at what Virginia did last week and the things that Chandler Morris did to them, and it makes me really think that it's going to be a struggle for Florida State. I do think it'll be close because this is as rivalry as it gets. But to me, I just feel like Miami's better. You go like, okay, Miami's defense is good. Florida State's offense is really good. Say wash those out. To me, if I feel like Miami's offense is a little better than Florida State's defense.
I have a very, very niche, weird stat for you that I saw No other team in the country but Miami. They lead the country in different players with at least 1.5 tackles for loss. They have 9 different guys on the team who have 1.5 tackles for loss. Do you know who is tied with Ruben Bain for the lead on this team in tackles for loss, Jason? It's another guy you know. It is Keontae Scott.
Keontae Scott. And again, he's in the nickel. They got him at the line of scrimmage. And because they have so much pressure there, it basically just allows him to be able to roam and do some things. How many does you still got their stats pulled up? What's Ruben Bain's stat? What's his stat line right now?
He's got 22 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, an interception, 2 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. So it's just kind of across.
What about the other defensive end?
Is it Messidor is the guy for them?
Yes,
the other one?
It is.
Yeah. He has 3 TFLs, 2.5 tackles for loss, forced fumble, deflection, pass breakup.
Yep. And so that's it. So those 2 guys have been tough. And all of a sudden you go, look, you can do that with 4 guys. Then it makes it really difficult for a guy like Thomas Castellanos because he's going to thrive on people having to blitz him and create some running lanes. And I don't expect Miami will have to do that a bunch. All right.
Patrick, we bring you in to close us out.
Bear Jr., what's going on here?
Well, I know we want to welcome Nathan King back to TNL this week. I know the PR line was that he was sick. I think he was boycotting my game of the week, so we welcome him back. But I'm calling an audible first time in Pat's Sexy Game of the Week history. I'm changing, even though I put on the message board this morning a different game. Shout out to Oregon State. They're on 0-12 watch. We have Western Kentucky and Delaware. The Blue Hens just moved up to FBS. They're 3-1 to start the season. Their only losses at Colorado. They beat UConn. They won at FIU. They're in Conference USA, which we're now supposed to call CUSA for reasons unknown. They took the hyphen away because that's important. But it is in Delaware, home of Joe Biden. They've won 10 straight at home. It needed to be said. 10 straight at home. It's their first nationally televised home game in a decade, which I thought was kind of hilarious. Now they were in the FCS. Now Western Kentucky is outscoring opponents 55-9 in the fourth quarter. They have had a pretty easy start to the season. But I'll go with Delaware to get the home Conference USA win. They have a pretty easy schedule. I mean, for coming up from FCS, it's kind of crazy. They're somewhat decent at all. But let's see. They play at Jacksonville State. That one will probably be difficult. But then Middle Tennessee's not very good. Liberty, the obvious most people's pick in Conference USA every year, has had a really bad season. Sam Houston's on 0-12 watch. They play at Wake. That could be difficult, but it could be a bowl-bound Blue Hen.
There you go. That would knock WKU off course a little bit because they're like a sneaky G5 playoff type team. They've only lost they've only lost to Toledo. Now they have to play LSU, so I think at that point you're out of it. But they're definitely the Conference USA favorite.
I'm going to give you my 0-12 watch team because they're going to get embarrassed at home on Saturday. Okay. Penn State UCLA in the Rose Bowl is the CBS game. UCLA has this season lost 43-10 to Utah, 30-23 to UNLV, 35-10 to New Mexico, 17-14 to Northwestern, and ahead for them. They get Penn State at home, at Michigan State, Maryland at home, at Indiana, Nebraska at home, at Ohio State, Washington at home, and USC. They're absolutely on 0-12 watch without question.
And they just changed coordinators this week.
Yep. And
they just changed offensive coordinators.
They did. Yep. Rick Neuheisel's son steps in to be the offensive coordinator, former UCLA quarterback, UCLA head coach. Now his son is the coordinator. See if he can give Nico a spark as they get ready to play Penn State, who defensively is pretty good. I don't like that matchup a whole lot.
Another, not an 0-12 watch, but it's getting late. It's already late for UCLA to fire their coach, but a getting late early situation. Wisconsin plays Michigan. Obviously, we all think Michigan's going to win, but I think it's, they lost to Alabama and Alabama threw it around. You could kind of convince yourself, Alabama's just really good, but they got outmanned by Maryland last week. I think this is Wisconsin's going to get beat badly at their own. You think of Wisconsin football, physical football, all the things. I think Michigan's going to kind of do that to them, and it could be a low point for old Luke Fickell.
Yeah, no, Bryce Underwood is a guy that can deal them a bunch of fits for sure.
That was mine, Patrick. Michigan is going to kill them, I think, in this game. The one where, and then we'll get out of here, but the one that is really interesting to me as we're putting games on the board here, and I'm the only one in the forecasters who has it, Cincinnati is actually a slight home favorite over Iowa State. Cincinnati has been sneaky okay in the Big 12. Iowa State just lost both their starting cornerbacks for the season as of yesterday.
And I really like Cincinnati's quarterback.
Yep.
Really, really athletic. Can make plays. He can do a lot of things, and so yeah, that's because it's early too. But Brendan Sorsby is a guy that he has some stuff to him. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception this year. He also has 4 touchdowns on the ground and like 200 and something yards rushing. He's a really athletic guy.
10 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1,000 yards through the air. Pretty good so far from Denton. Shout out to Taylor Bryan.
Yep, Denton, Texas.
So, all right, guys. Well, that'll be it. We're at about 40 minutes now, and me and Jason said we go about 25 or 30. So that's just how these things tend to go. Thank you for the Cub, Patrick, bringing in his expertise at the end of the show. For Jason Caldwell, I am Nathan King. Thank you guys so much for joining us on Thursday Night Live. Jason, go for it.
Thank you to AU Club. Not there this week, but thank you for partnership, sponsoring. Go check them out. Matter of fact, you're not going to have better weather than to go give them a look this weekend because it is gorgeous outside. So go check out AU Club.
We will be happy to be back next week when Auburn takes on Georgia. Until then, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will talk to y'all later.